Welcome back to episode 5 of JuicedCast, a podcast made for resellers by resellers. I'm here with the co-host Saucyy Mango today, bro. How's it going? I'm DTX, and I'm super excited for today's podcast. How's it going, Saucyy?
I'm doing well, man. I'm happy to be back for our 5th episode. It's exciting to bring some more content for you guys this week. DTX, let's start off with a recap. Give our listeners a little insight into what we introduced our last podcast and what we're looking to continue for today.
Yeah, for sure. So, last podcast we kind of went into what it takes to be successful in sneaker botting and basically the proxies, servers, the couches, all of that. And we briefly discussed ways to even like break even with the expenses if you're not as successful in the drop or anything like that. And that was really it. We kind of did an intro to botting and the risks you go in with botting and like even like ways that Juice could help with the free bot rentals and stuff like that. Um, Anything you to kind of add on to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you covered it pretty briefly and accurately. So let's get started for this episode. In this episode, DTX and I will like to go further and discuss budgeting. I know we've really reiterated that over and over again, but it's really important. And today we're going to talk about ways to go about that, ways to stay organized, managing your inventory, how to start off with a limited budget, right? And also, I'd like to give that a shout out to one of our supporters who reached out to us with some suggestions on some information and what they would like us to bring to this episode. This has really helped us bring more content tailored towards you, our listeners. I usually like to say that, the foundation of several careers or jobs is based on the demand for such a service. And what this means is that as consumers, we tend to pay professionals to do things we don't want to do ourselves. With the deadline for filing taxes coming up soon, at least in Canada, I thought of the idea of getting accountants. When it comes to reselling, a great way of managing your expenses is through the traditional way of personal accounting. There's plenty of ways to keep track of your expenses. With online banking now available to us, Excel spreadsheets, and even automated services such as Scout. DTX and I are going to go to discuss how we manage botting costs and inventory. So would you like to start us off with your personal experience of staying organized and how you keep track of all your incurring transactions?
Yeah, so like you said, for us, the tax deadline's also coming up, and I'm fortunate enough this year to kind of have like a CPA kind of guide me through the process and kind of like help me file and make it really organized for future years. Where in the U.S., if you ever get audited by the IRS, you want to stay organized and make sure you provide them everything they need and cooperate, so that you can not pay any fines or fees or anything like that, and everything goes smooth sailing. Um, and I personally I've used everything from you mentioned Scout to Excel spreadsheets. I personally use spreadsheets. Excel provides some really good templates which you can use. My homie gave me a template for Excel recently, and I completely switched everything over to that 2 weeks ago, and it's been working really good. So with Excel templates, all the categories you can like divide into um, like the ways you're selling. So on mine, I have like sold on Instagram, sold at consignment, sold at store, sold at Discord, whatever it may be. I divide it that way. I divide it by payment, um, like payment options that I took, like Venmo, Apple Pay, PayPal, so I can like track it that way as well. Keeps it really organized. Regarding like expenses, I have a completely different spreadsheet for that, which is kind of linked to my mail that one of my developer friends did for me, and it's basically lays out everything for me, and it's really beautiful. So like it keeps everything organized, and I know there's other apps that can automate it for you. I just like to have my own personally and keep it organized my way, if that makes sense. I don't like the way that other people do it, but those work great too. I've used them and they're phenomenal. Saucyy, what about you?
Yeah, that's really cool, man. You made a really good point, saying that you do it your way, right? I think that's a really important thing to remember is there's not one way to track everything, right? It's really a mix of trial and error and just seeing what you're comfortable with and what makes it easier for you to remember things and keep track of things. I mean, I myself, similar to you, I use spreadsheets as well. I use Excel. You know, you mentioned the templates, which are really, really good, right? They you can divide each sheet into like, your proxy expenses and bot rentals or cook group subscriptions, and even like, servers, right? Like how much you're spending on servers, or if you're creating servers with AWS, And I just wanted to mention for those of you listening, if you want to learn more about creating servers, we can definitely go into that for future episodes. But yeah, they can be adjusted, and for each cell in Excel, it's coordinated with the numbers to total up, right? Which makes it quick, easy, and efficient. And in order to put all my expenses, I actually still currently use, traditional paper mail bank statements that come to my house. The reason is I like having everything laid out in front of me. I think this is similar to sort of how I learn academically with school, right? Like we have computers at our disposal now and a lot of technology to type in our work, type in, our notes and whatever. But I like to keep it traditional and even handwrite some of my notes. This helps lay out everything in front of me. I can highlight specific transactions when it comes to the paper mail, and just organize them. You said, DTX, that you've had some experience with Scout app. What are some, key takeaways from the software that you can share with our listeners, and how does it compare to spreadsheets or your personal way of managing expenses?
I'd like to start off with like kind of like talking about Scout and how phenomenal their staff and support is. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more professional group of people, and I truly like I kept Scout for a while to support them even after I stopped using it, just because of how phenomenal like they are. So like there's personally I don't use Scout for many reasons, but just their platform and the support and the owners are truly amazing. So nothing but love to Scout. Now, the reason I personally don't use Scout is because I do a lot of bulk selling and buying. When it comes to bulk selling and buying, I found that Scout isn't the most efficient. I found that using a spreadsheet is just better because I can organize it into the ways I sold it, the dates, my profits, everything is better. So like I'm looking at my spreadsheet right now. I have so on mine it says like in my inventory, there's a section for that on Excel. Then there's like just general, which kind of tells me like the name of the product, the SKU, the size, the purchase amount, the date. And then there's a StockX tab, a GOAT and alias tab, a consignment tab. And then the last tab includes my expenses. In the expenses tab, this is the one that I said is linked to my email. And on the side, it kind of has a graph. Based on the stuff that I include, it kind of shows like by the month, okay, in January, my expenses were uh, this number, and then in February is this number. So it kind of shows that it's going up and then down. So like in January, my expenses went up 32% from what they were in December, but in February they were down 56% from what they were in January. It's kind of a way to keep a good track of where your expenses are and making sure that you're not overspending. That was a huge problem I had back when I was in a great bookkeeper around this time last year, and I was realizing I was spending way more in expenses than I thought I was. That's really common with beginner resellers as well, as like you spend a lot more than you think you are, and it just becomes a mess. Make sure that you're keeping track of the things that you're buying and the things that you're selling, and you're doing good bookkeeping, because that's something I kind of slacked off on in the beginning, and I realized that that can take a huge toll on uh your platform and just the way you resell. And I think Saucyy, like, can you kind of explain like what's the importance of bookkeeping to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, bookkeeping is really important. It really separates, a good business person from someone who doesn't really know what they're doing or who's less organized, right? We have to keep track of sales. We have to keep track of expenses, right? Otherwise, we won't know our net profit, how much we're really making. Because at the end of the day, at least for the beginning as a reseller, we might be getting a lot of product, but we might not be knowing how much we're really making in return from all that product, right? You could be looking and saying, oh, I made like ten shoe sales, but how much have you really made from those sales, right? And has that really cover the cost for, if you're botting, has that cover the cost for proxies and all your other botting investments that we discussed last episode, right? But you mentioned a really interesting point about Scout. You said, you yourself, how you manage your business, you do a lot of bulk stuff, right? And you said that, Scout may not be as efficient for you, or I guess what you're looking for. So My question to you would be, DTX, like how how is Scout, useful, or who would you recommend Scout to? What type of person would benefit the most from that program?
Yeah, 100%. So, not only when I say it's good for beginners, I'd say it's good for people that are 5 years, 6 years into reselling that are dealing with bulk and shoes. A lot of the stuff I deal with is I deal with like bulk everything, right? Not only shoes, some like other products as well, some clothing, all the stuff. So like it's not just shoes. And that's why I think Scout wasn't a perfect fit for me, but like if you're just reselling shoes, if you're just reselling like some clothing, I think that it's a perfect fit. It's super organized, keeps everything in the same place, and they actually have a tutorial to help you with taxes at the end of the year if you know you're not familiar with that, or you don't have someone to help you throughout like that process. They have something that helps you out. They have a tutorial that like makes sure that you know you file your taxes properly, and I think that's beautiful. And the way that they've done it is just truly remarkable. I mean, I stated this before, but they have some of the best staff and support I've ever seen for a product like that. And I think it's they've created something really special. And I still support them, and I'm still in contact with some of the people that work there, and I'm just super excited to see what they have. And one day I might switch back to Scout. Who knows? But like they have a lot of stuff coming in the future. And for me, I'm just super old fashioned in a sense to where like I prefer Excel, because on Scout I have to like press the product and then add the number. Well, on Excel, I'm sure you're familiar with this, Saucy. I just put in
Yeah.
I just put in like what product it is, and then you click on the bottom right corner and then you drag down. You know what I mean? So it's like, in that sense, bulk is just way easier and way faster and way more efficient on Excel. And also on Excel, whenever I'm sending it to CPA or anything like that, yes, you can export your Scout stuff to a CSV, but they kind of get confused. But when I send to Excel, the one that I used, it's perfect. They understand it, and it works really well. So when I work with other people that aren't in reselling and they're helping me out filing my taxes and all that, it just works out better. Do I make sense?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, for those of you listening right now, I think the one thing we can take away from that valuable information DTX gave us was Scout might limit us, as you said, in terms of like the products that you're trying to account for, right? The really good benefit of Scout is that it's able to sync and connect to multiple reselling platforms, like such as Goat or StockX, and keep track of purchases and sales. But maybe if you are getting into clothing, as DTX said, that may not be something to consider. But yeah, I want to also dive into the topic of keeping track of your inventory, right? DTX gave us insight into Scout and its feature to keep track of inventory. So let's look into other alternative methods for managing inventory. Using spreadsheets to itemize every expense and purchase goods. How do we allocate? Can we allocate a designated area in your space for your reselling goods? So make sure you keep in mind that for this low budget that we're trying to discuss in this episode, this is a great idea instead of investing in storage units and less hassle to worry about security and so on. You don't want to ever mix, your personal items with your inventory. Also, discussing like reshippers, right? For international resellers, as myself, I'm Canadian. How do you make your business successful and make sure that you keep track of everything? And when it comes to botting, right? We discussed the idea of emails and catch-all. This is very useful when you're reshipping. Using reshipping services, you can create a catch-all, which is essentially like a business domain or email, where you can create sub profiles or emails to redirect all to the one main email address. And this is useful for creating multiple profiles for botting, but also keeping track of all your order numbers and tracking details all under one email. So DTX, in regards to that, how do you keep track of inventory?
For me, basically, I just keep track whenever it comes in hand, or I look at my bank statements and kind of see the charges. And if I went for a drop, I obviously like know what shoe is coming in. But to be honest, I really don't log it into the inventory until I have it in hand, because most of the shoes that I get, it's through foot sites, and foot sites tend to go on back order or PV, payment verification, and cancel my order, which is kind of something we talked about in previous episodes. But that is basically the only way I will put it into my spreadsheets if I have it in my hand. And, now especially I'm starting to get a lot of pairs to in-store. And so that way, I'm getting the pair the day it comes out. Now, kind of to add on to like Scout, which is something I forgot to bring up, is that if you bought Scout is perfect, you can bind your keys to the Scout app. So basically, with some bots, I know that it's integrated to where every time there's a checkout, Scout will log it into your inventory, which I found is really cool. If it finds that it's under your profile. So I think that's like really, really cool, especially for botters. What do you think about that?
That is very useful. That is a very good point. You know, most bots, right? We get our emails, we get everything, but we don't have a track of all the expenses or the purchases. And having Scout integrated with our bots is very, very useful because as soon as we check out, that'll connect directly to our Scout program, which allows us to have everything synced together, right? And you can view everything with a simple user interface and everything will move fluidly. But finally, I wanted to get into our experience with bots and sort of how we started. DTX, do you want to share with our listeners what your botting experience has been, whether it may be as a bot owner or a renter? How did you get your first bot that you used? Was it hard? Did you rent or buy? Or if you have bought, did you have to pay the resale market value or retail? Because the thing is, when you hop onto bot broker or botmart or anything like that to look into the market or see if you can begin botting and then see these ridiculous prices, I'm sure that must be very, very overwhelming. So TTX, do you want to share your own experience in regards to this?
Yeah. So for me, basically, I wasn't really into botting. I was kind of just looping some in-store pairs for like, 5 to 10 profit on each. I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to get these pairs that are like 100 to 200 profit on each, which is, the stuff that's coming up on foot sites. One of my friends told me about this bot back in August called Phantom. So I kind of rented out Phantom twice, and I was like, oh shoot, this bot is really cool. So I kind of saved up a little. At the time, I wasn't really a big believer in botting, so I was like, do I really don't put this much money into botting? So I said, all right, we'll just like put like a few bucks from every sale into this like little fund for Phantom, and eventually we'll buy it. The time comes, I buy Phantom, and this is around PS5's time, and I didn't really do well with it, so I sold it and kind of took a small loss. Wasn't It was kind of a regret of mine. I wish I kept it and tried it out on foot sites, but that's not what ended up happening. Instead, I started renting. I started renting Wrath. I started renting, Cyber, all these top bots. And that's when I actually started to hit pairs. I started to hit like small clips, like 5 to 6 pairs, 7 to 8. With Jubilees, I hit 39, including PVs. That was like my first real clip. But then I'd say right after Jubilees, when I hit that 39, that's when I started like trying out other bots. My friend who goes out of town a lot lets me run his bots, and he has like really good bots as well. I currently have a Prism copy, and I'm able to use that, and I hit pairs with that. And I know Saucy, you have Prism as well. So just kind of you know trying out different bots, trying out different setups, finding your perfect fit. And once you find that, you're just gonna find that you cook consistently. I promise you, I went from hitting 1 to 2 pairs to hitting 60 plus pairs. I mean, it's just consistency. Consistency is key. What do you think, Saucy?
Yeah, absolutely. The difference is night and day. And when I looked into investing in my first spot, it was really between Phantom and PD, which is Project Destroyer, and that was what ended up being my first bot. I went into it for the idea that it was an AIO bot. It gave me sort of a well-rounded range of different sites that I could bot, and at the time we labeled it as the cheap cyber, which is why I went that route. But yeah, botting for me at the start, as much as I did a lot of research at the beginning, I invested in PD and then I looked into renting out a lot of bots. But I'd say where I went wrong there was I didn't do enough research prior to renting the bots. I wish I had learned them a lot more beforehand, before I used them. And the reason for this is because for those of you that rent and know how to rent bots, you get them at a specific time frame, right? And the cheaper the rate is specifically tailored to how long you rent it for. And for me, trying to minimize as much cost as I could, I rented it on certain drop days, not necessarily weekly rentals or monthly rentals. And so that hindered me with having very much time with the bot and having the ability to develop a lot of familiarity with it. And that, I guess, stunted my growth at the time. But now, I've definitely progressed in that realm. And, as you said, I use Prism. I have a bunch of different bots now that I use myself. And it's really, really fascinating to see how far it has grown. But this brings me to a really important question slash topic that I want to bring up. And we see all these prices for bots, and a lot of people might get discouraged to even enter the botting scene simply for that initial investment. But the thing is, we mentioned the idea of rentals and stuff like that, but we never really got into the idea of actually how to get a bot for retail price, because at the end of the day, these ridiculous prices that we see are not the labeled price for the bot when you're actually purchasing it directly from the supplier or the company itself. And is it really as difficult as people say? So, what are some good ways to get a bot for retail? Well, first things first is investing in a good cook group, right? Juiced is a phenomenal cook group, and they have a lot of great partnerships and group buys, right? And what group buys allow you to do is, go after a restock with limited users, going after the same product exclusive to your group without having to worry about, the thousands and thousands of people going after a public restock on a Twitter page, right? And also maybe also considering investing in like restock groups, which provide top-notch monitors, autofill extensions, and those are also things that Juiced.io offers. And they offer a lot of advice and monitors to Twitter giveaways and restocks. And it might be good to consider investing in some Google extension services, right? Some of these may be like, ZanyScripts or whatever it may be, which provide you top high quality scripts to check out automatically. And for those of you wondering, what are scripts or how are they different from bots? To give you sort of a simple breakdown of what the importances of scripts and how they play a role in terms of restocks and how they're different from bots. Well, essentially, bots run on computer servers, right? And they interact with other websites using their network connection. But on the other hand, scripts are small programs written by users to automate tasks. So, why are they important? Well, there's not really bots out there at the moment which are designed to check out a product for bot restocks. They're not, you can't really bot a bot company's restock. Most bot restocks nowadays, they're not like they used to be, but they're at least a lot more complex now and require several verification steps or puzzles, or some have been implementing games. Like Wrath recently they did this one restock where they had like a Flappy Bird game where you had to, they left it open for several users, and whoever got like the top 30 highest score was able to access a checkout link for their bot, which is really cool. um, but with constant change for restock, as companies try to make them as fair as possible, it's hard to have a bot which keeps up to date with that and stay successful. This is where scripts come into play, and they have a role to follow specific instructions to check out once you get past the first couple stages of a restock. Once users are able to get through it, it's all up to the scripts afterwards to autofill your information, auto submit your information to purchase a bot license.
Yeah, 100%. I think that that Flappy Bird thing was really cool, and especially in conjunction with Scout. So kind of going back to Scout, and they just do a bunch of dope things, which is really cool. And I mean, investing in some really good Google extensions, kind of like what you said prior. And I mean, that's really it. That's the best you can do. Just put in a good investment, put in hard work, put in time, and put in effort to create a good setup. Like we kind of said last episode, coming up with the perfect setup will equal, clips every drop. And this is kind of a continuation to our like botting mini series. So you guys can have a general understanding of how to stay organized, keep track of your expenses and inventory, how to get bots for retail. And we'd love to hear some feedback from you guys. DM me on Discord or DM Saucyy. Our Twitters are linked in the description below on any platform that you're watching us on. And let us know if you liked the episode and if you'd like to get some more content specific to botting, and where we go in more specific detail. And actually, if you're watching on Instagram, our our Twitters will not be in the link in description. So my Twitter is at DTX SNKRS. Saucyy Mango, do you want to say your Twitter real quick?
Yeah, mine is SAUCYY and then mango, just like the fruit, saucy mango.
Perfect. And yeah, like I was saying, if you want to get into more content specific stuff related to botting, we can go more in detail and take your skills to the next level. That's what we're here to do. We mentioned in the last podcast that we can dive into topics such as task creation, different sites, billing profiles like jigging, and as well as proxies, bots, and server creation with AWS or Google servers, whatever you may want to use. That's really it for this episode. Sauce, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for you guys who are continuing to support us and return to our podcast for this fifth episode. And like DTX mentioned, please take advantage of those suggestions, and we'll definitely be able to bring some more content tailored towards you guys, and revolve around what you guys are looking for. But anyways, until next time, peace.